Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hello, I'm Shannon and I'm a professional pet portrait and wildlife artist and I specialise in coloured pencils. And this is a brand new series that I'm starting called Notes from the Studio, where I talk about topics that you ask me about in my YouTube comments in a very relaxed and informal manner. And the plan is to pack these videos full of information, tips and tricks without over editing them and adding loads of b-roll and fancy footage in. So I'm not going to worry about visuals at all in these videos. I just want to be able to share more things that I've learned, and if I was to create those really highly produced videos, they would be few and far between, and I'd rather be able to get more information out there, and if that means just sticking me on in the background while you're doing something and thinking of this more as a podcast, then that means that I can share more videos like this. So feel free to just pop me on while you're drawing or painting or sculpting, whatever it is that you're doing, even if you're just hanging your washing out. So yeah, I hope you enjoy them, and without further ado, here is the comment that I am responding to in this video. The comment is from Spindle Trees Studio Videos, and they've asked, I'm wanting to start doing workshops, your videos help. It would be really great if you did a what I've learned about doing workshops video for us people who are scared to take the plunge. Did you need an alcohol or a music license or to license the photos you use, or are they all your photos? Thanks. Okay, so let's get into everything that I've learned about doing art workshops. Now, the first stage of organising any workshop is to obviously start doing some planning. And one of the most important aspects is finding a venue. So I would recommend starting out quite local. Have a look for different types of venues in your local area. There's actually so many types of venues to consider, from bars and pubs to cafes and coffee shops, art galleries and art centres, village halls and sports clubs, and places that you might not think of like garden centres. And that's actually where I do all of my current workshops, at Barton Grange Garden Centre. So you might think there's not that many to choose from, but if you start getting creative and thinking more outside the box, you might realise that there's actually quite a lot of places nearby. So when you're choosing a venue, there's quite a lot of different factors to consider. First of all, think about what type of vibe you want your workshop to be. Do you want it to be really relaxed and chilled and a great way for your attendees to unwind? Or do you want to go down the more fun, exciting route and do sip and paints where everyone's really high energy with loads of fun and excitement? I personally tend to go for more of a relaxed and chilled out setting for my workshops because coloured pencils are quite intense and unforgiving. So I feel like everyone needs to concentrate, relax and really focus on what they're doing and get lost in the drawing. So having a setting that allows people to do that is important for me. My entire brand as an artist is more relaxed and like wholesome and chilled. So that is the vibe that I like to bring to my workshops as well. Or you might want to go in the direction of doing more paint and sip classes where drinks are flowing, everyone's having a great time, plenty of alcohol involved in a bar or club. And that is totally up to you and what you envision yourself doing. So when choosing a venue, obviously take all that into consideration, but you also want to consider different things like, is it easily accessible? Is there a bus route running past it? Is there a train station nearby, or is it only accessible if you were to drive? That's something that's really going to have an impact on the sales that you make. I did some workshops at a gorgeous venue, absolutely stunning, would love to do all of my workshops there, but it just wasn't quite central enough for me, and a lot of my audience are all over the country and might consider travelling, but if it's not near a train station, it just makes it a bit hard work for people. So yeah, you have to think about how far people are going to be willing to travel to get to your venue and if it's easy enough to get to. Also consider if it's a well-known popular place, if it's already got a big customer base. If it does, then that's really going to help you to sell tickets, especially to perhaps an audience that you don't already have. So Barton Grange, where I do my workshops, they're so well known in the local area and even out of the local area, to be honest, that the tickets in a way do kind of sell themselves to an extent because it's already a household name, people know what it is. and are already looking on their website at all the different things they do. So I'm really lucky that I've found a venue that is very popular. Whereas if you're choosing somewhere that is in the middle of nowhere, no one's ever heard of it, you might struggle to get people to come that don't already know who you are. So you do tend to get a mix of people who know you and people who don't know you if you're an established artist. So that's all something to take into account as well. So once you've done your research and you've narrowed your venues down, you've got a few to choose from, I'd recommend finding out about how the pricing works, because that's going to really affect which one you go for. Some venues charge astronomical amounts to hire the room, and some don't. So while it's important to choose a lovely venue, it's also really important to choose one that's not way out of your budget. Some venues charge by the hour, some charge by a half day or a full day, or some venues just take a commission from the ticket sales. I'm lucky that mine do the last one, so I don't have to take any major risks and fork out a big deposit, but I think it's very rare that venues do that. So you need to find all of that out and see what the different options are. If they do take a deposit, then that's great, because you can put a small amount down for the room, put your tickets online, start bringing some sales in, and then pay the main chunk of it once you've already got the sales. So once you know the prices of a few different venues, I'd recommend setting up an appointment to go and have a good look around. You can't always get a feel for a place from photos, and if it's somewhere that isn't accessible by the public, you know, it's not a pub or bar that you can just go into, it's definitely worth setting up an appointment. A lot of the spaces that you can hire are like private spaces that you wouldn't be able to just go and have a look inside. So either way, I would set up an appointment, and then you can have a proper chat in person, get a vibe for the place, and ask lots and lots of questions and see if it's a good fit for you. I'd also recommend finding out what the maximum capacity is, what's the most amount of people that you could have in one workshop, see what the table setup is like, if the lighting's any good, see if they offer food and drinks, if they've got staff to serve food and drinks, or if you're able to take food yourself, if you need a projector to do a demonstration, see if you need any insurance. I've not been asked about that at any of the venues that I've done workshops at, but some might. I don't know if it's different in different countries. Spindle Trees, you asked about an alcohol and music license, and again, I think that's something that you need to ask the venues about. I imagine licenses like that would be the responsibility of the venue, but I'm not too sure, so it's worth checking those things if you are concerned about them. But also have a look and see if the venue's clean and tidy, because you don't want to put your name on something that you wouldn't be happy and proud to promote. I have heard horror stories about artists going to new venues to have a look and them being an absolute tip and really unprofessional when they get there. So that's why it's always worth setting up an appointment and having a look before you commit to putting any deposits or anything like that down. You might find that there's nowhere near enough natural lighting or no decent lights inside the room, and you wouldn't be able to see what you're doing clearly enough to do an art workshop. So these are all things to take into account. So once you've found out what the prices are, you can do some calculations and see how much profit you can make depending on different prices that you could sell your tickets for. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more cost factors that come into play, like your materials, any food and drink, stuff like that. But you just want to see what the minimum amount you'd need to sell your ticket for would be to more than cover the cost of the venue. Because at the end of the day, you want this to be worth your while. You don't want to be making peanuts from it. You're putting a lot of time and effort into this. When it comes to any extras like food and drink, see what the prices are for those. A lot of places put them on as extras and add-ons. Sometimes you can just get coffees and teas. Some places offer cake as well, afternoon teas, full meals, a glass of Prosecco on arrival. There's so many different things that you could add on to your workshops. But just be aware that when you start doing that, the price does massively go up. So it's whether you want to include food in your workshop at all. You could time it so that you just skip lunch or tea or dinner, as you would call it. I call it tea. Think about whether it's worth bothering having food at your workshop or not, and find out what the prices for those would be. You would save a lot of money if you provided those yourself, but I think some venues probably wouldn't be happy with you doing that. So just find all that out. I'm very lucky that the venue that I use has a cafe on site, so I don't really need to worry about food. The workshops that I do at the minute tend to be between 10 a.m. in the morning and 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So we do have a lunch break in between. But like I say, there's a cafe and they also allow people to bring a packed lunch. So that works really well for me because I don't need to worry about food. It's too much to think about when I'm already putting a whole workshop together, and I want to focus on the art side of it, not on the food. So yeah, that works out really well for me. You might be really keen to include the food in a package, but I think especially if you're just starting out, it is so much easier to not worry about providing food or anything like that just yet. I mean, there's no harm in having a few biscuits or cakes. I do add refreshments onto my package and include teas and coffees and water, and that is more than enough. A lot of the time, people might have 1 or 2 drinks over the course of the whole workshop. I think because everyone's so focused on what they're doing, they're not too worried about having loads and loads to eat and drink. So I think food isn't as big of a deal as you might think it is. So say for example, you want to do a half-day workshop and your venue charges £200 flat rate for a half day. But say you charged £60 for your ticket and you had 10 people attend, that is £600 you'd make, so £400 profit, and that's not even considering all of the materials and bits and bobs that you need to include in that cost. So you need to have a look at the numbers and see what the minimum amount of people you would need is to make a decent profit. The worst thing that could happen is you only sell a few tickets and you don't even make enough to cover the room cost. That is everyone's worst nightmare with this, but on the other hand, you don't want to charge an absolute fortune for your tickets and then your attendees have incredibly high expectations. You just don't want people to feel like they're getting ripped off. And I'm sure if you're putting a lot of effort into your workshops, they're not going to feel like that anyway, but you know where I'm coming from. You want it to be like in a nice middle ground where everyone's getting value for money, but you're also not losing out. So yeah, do with that what you will. If you want to price your tickets really high, then that's absolutely fine. As long as you sell them and everyone's happy and enjoyed themselves, then it's a win-win. But it does put a lot more pressure on you to deliver something exceptional. So once you've found a venue that aligns with your budget, it's got a lovely vibe, lovely location, it is time to book a date for your workshop. Now, I would recommend booking it at least a month in advance. 3 if you can, just to give a little more time for ticket sales to come through. I feel like people have plans way in advance and need a bit of notice to get events like this into the diary. So the more time between now and the workshop, the better. I do tend to book mine a good few months in advance. Recently, I've been booking like 4 or 5 at once, and then I've got a list of upcoming dates that I can then share at the workshops. So then I've always got people coming back to future dates. But for now, I would just focus on this first workshop. 2 at the most, because it's a lot to organise and you never know, you might not enjoy doing it, so you might never want to do one again. If you can give some good notice for the workshop, then that's great. You also want to think about whether you're going to do the workshop midweek, at the weekend, in a morning, in an afternoon, evening, all day. There's so many different variations. I prefer to do mine at the weekends just because there's more people that are off work. I know obviously people do work at weekends, but on the whole, there's more people available on the weekend. Sometimes I do Fridays if the weekends aren't available, but I always tend to stay in that like weekend sort of area. I feel like people don't mind taking a Friday off because they get a long weekend, so I do tend to stay like around the weekend for mine, but I know a lot of people like to do them midweek. I think a lot of that depends on your audience and when they're available. If you're doing paint and sip classes where you want like hen do's, birthdays, big groups of people, you're probably better off doing a weekend, because I can't imagine people wanting to do something like that midweek. I don't know, I might be wrong, but on the whole, if you can do a weekend, then great. But I know some places probably do put the price up for the weekend as well, so it depends. The day you choose probably will have an impact on your ticket sales. I did a workshop on Easter weekend this year, and that was a terrible, terrible idea, because everyone was away on holiday or busy doing things with the family, and I only had 3 people come. I ended up doing the workshop anyway because I didn't want to let anyone down. But the venue that I use goes off ticket commissions. So whether you have 3 people or 10 people, they charge you the same price per person. So it's great. It means that if that does happen, it's not the end of the world. But if you're paying £200 for a venue and you only get a few people show up, it is a little bit more unfortunate. So yeah, the date that you choose really does make a difference, and I've learnt that the hard way. The amount of time that you run the workshop for also depends on the medium that you're using. So because I used coloured pencils, it's a very slow medium. It takes a long time to build up all of the layers, and we need a good chunk of like a few hours to get anything decent done. I want people to walk away and feel like they've drawn something substantial, but you're never going to do like a huge piece in one sitting. So 10 to 3 is good for me because that's 5 hours with half an hour or so for lunch, depending on how intensive the drawing is. And I think any longer than that for coloured pencils, people start to get a bit like shifty and moving around, and you can just tell that everyone's getting a bit tired of it towards the end of the workshop. So I wouldn't want to do it any longer, because it's a lot of hunching over unless you're able to provide everyone with a drawing board, which would get very expensive if you start doing that. But I think there's a sweet spot of enough time to get a decent amount of work done, but not too long that everyone's like exhausted and ready to go home. If you're doing acrylic paints, you might be able to do a 1 hour or 2 hour workshop. Yeah, it totally depends on the speed of your art medium, on how long you do the workshop for. Also consider that whatever time the workshop starts, you need to get there probably a good hour before to start setting up, and you're going to be there for a good half hour or so afterwards to pack away. So if your workshop starts at 9 in the morning, you're going to have to get there for about 8, and that's quite an early day. The garden centre that I do mine at doesn't open till 9, so I can't go and set up until it opens, which is why I start my workshops at 10, because then it gives me a time to set up, and it's also just a better time for people to come. Like, how many people want to get up really early on a Saturday morning to go to a workshop? Some people might, but I think on the whole, consider what's a comfortable time for your attendees to be getting up and going to the workshop. Also, because mine finish at 3, there's enough time left in the day for people to go and enjoy their afternoon. If it's a nice day, they can still enjoy the sunshine. So just think about all these different factors. I know it's a lot to think about, but all these little things really make a difference in how well your workshops do. So once you've found your venue, you've booked a date in, it is time to start selling tickets. If you've already got your own website that you can use to start selling tickets, then that is perfect, because you can just set up a listing for the event and be in control of selling the tickets yourself. I use Wix for my website, and in the past I have used the event feature to sell tickets, and it's quite easy to set up. I imagine a lot of different website builders like Shopify and Squarespace have that kind of feature on there. But if not, then you can just set up a normal product and sell tickets that way instead. The event feature just allows you to input the information in more of like an event style. So it is a little bit easier that way, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have that on your website. If you don't have a website at all, then it's not the end of the world. You can do it the old-fashioned way and take ticket sales through email and write people's names down, get the contact details, take it by bank transfer, but I would say to avoid doing that if you can. I think a lot of people these days like to just go online on a website and buy a ticket. They don't want to be faffing around with contacting someone directly. I mean, some people are fine doing that, but I think in this day and age, most people would probably prefer to do it through a website. If you're doing it that way, you also have to make sure you're being so organised and keeping track of everyone that has booked onto your event. Whereas if you've got your own website and you've set up the tickets, you can keep track of it on there. There's analytics, it shows every sale that you've made, and it's just so much easier. I always prefer to use a bit of technology for things like this, but I appreciate not everyone's super like clued up on tech and stuff. But if you don't have a website and you also don't want to do it the old school way, you can use websites like Eventbrite to set up an event. I think it's free to set up, and then I'm guessing they just take a portion of the ticket sale for platform fees. But have a look at that. I'm not really too clued up on it because I've never used it before, but That is another option if you would like to set up an event and sell tickets online. So once you've decided on the way you're going to sell your tickets, you want to make sure that your event has a really clear description of what the workshop includes and what the attendees can expect. So include the venue, the address of the venue, details of what you'll be getting up to in the workshop, whether the materials are included, whether food is included. All of these things you want to be listing really clearly on your event page. The more information you can include, the better really, because it means people aren't as likely to ask loads of questions. You might still get some questions, but the more information you have available, the more likely people know what to expect and they'll book on if it's for them. It's also important at this stage to consider whether you're going to show the subject you'll be working on ahead of the event. I do that because I feel like a lot of people like to see what they're going to be drawing. I tend to show a picture of the reference photo we're going to use in my event listing. But I know some artists prefer to choose a theme like birds, and then you know you're going to be drawing a bird but you don't know exactly what. So there's different ways to do it. I just prefer to be really transparent and include exactly what we're going to be doing on the day, because I don't want anyone to be disappointed. I know it's quite exciting doing it that way because it's like, oh, what we're going to be drawing, but if it's something they're not too keen on, they might regret booking the ticket and then they might really not enjoy the day. I tend to show what we're going to be drawing, and that also means when I do the practice drawing ahead of the class, because I always do a practice, I can record the process and share it on social media and get people more excited about it. Just pausing this on this lovely facial expression because I completely forgot to respond to the part of the question asking where I get my references from. So at the minute I mostly use royalty-free stock photo websites to get my references, and they're completely free to use. You don't need to purchase a license or anything like that, and there's 3 websites that I use: Unsplash, Pexels and Pixabay. So I'll link them in the description down below. There's so many references to choose from. Of course, you're going to end up using a lot of the same references as other artists, but they're free, so take advantage of them. I plan now to start taking more of my own references. I've got myself a camera to do wildlife photography, so that is my plan going forward. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue to use the royalty-free stock photo websites. I know some artists that offer multiple subjects that you can choose from on the day, or they're more like laid-back classes where there's not a specific subject you're going to be working on, there's loads of different things. That would be very stressful for me as a coloured pencil artist, because there's so much that goes into the process and techniques for each subject. It would just be too overwhelming to do that many different things. But if you're doing watercolours or sketching in graphite or acrylic paint, it would be a little bit easier to do something like that. But with coloured pencils, you have each individual colour as a pencil. It would just be too much to think about. So yeah, decide whether you're going to have a really specific subject beforehand or if you're going to leave it more as a mystery. I also include information about bringing devices like iPads and phones, because I do pre-record a full tutorial video for every workshop that I do now. And I also state that materials can be purchased at the end, so people don't feel pressure to rush, and they know that if they go as a beginner and they don't finish, it's not the end of the world. There are other options. And it also covers me if we don't finish in the workshop, and it also covers you as an artist a little bit. If you don't finish, people might get a bit irritated that they've not completed it, but if there is the option to take the pencils home at the end, then it's all good. People work at different paces, and some people might struggle to keep up with your instruction, but making people aware of that before they come is always a great idea. So once you've set up your method for selling tickets, it's time to promote them. So you want to start getting the word out there so that you can begin making some ticket sales. I am super lucky again that my venue do all of the ticket processing for me. They list it on their website, they take all of the payments, and they also do a lot of the marketing and promotion for me, which is amazing. They make leaflets with upcoming events on and hand them out around the garden centre. They've got screens around the garden centre with the events on, and obviously they list the events on their website, and a lot of people do go on their website. So it's a huge weight off my shoulders. I do get sales coming in from people that I've never met before or chatted to on social media and have no idea who I am as an artist. So it's really nice to meet new people and introduce people to my work. That's why, like I said earlier, it's great to go with a venue that already has an established customer base who know what the place is, and you can really reap the benefits of that. But saying that, just because the venue does do promotion for me doesn't mean I always get sellout events from their marketing. I do still have to do a lot of promotion and marketing myself. And so I share all of my workshops on my social media, on my Instagram, my Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and anywhere that I can think of, I share my workshops. And it's important not to just mention it once or twice, but mention it loads and loads of times. You might think that people get sick of hearing about things that you're promoting, but actually a lot of people don't see those posts that you're making. So you want to keep mentioning it. Also consider direct messaging anyone who's shown interest in the idea of one of your workshops before. If you do online teaching, say on Patreon or YouTube, share it on there. See if there's anyone interested. It's always worth mentioning it, even if you think it might lead to nothing. Something that I used to do, which I probably should do again, is make an event on Facebook. You know, you can invite people to it. I feel like I should do that again because that seemed to work well last time. I just forget these things sometimes. And also posting in local Facebook groups. Some don't like you to promote, but others are all right with it. So just have a look and try different things. You really want to make the most of your local area. See if you can go and put some posters up around different places. My local booths in Garstang, there's a board with adverts. You could put a little poster on there. I've seen posters on the window of the local petrol station as well. So you could put posters up in quite a lot of different places. You could also run paid ads on your social media where you can select an audience within a certain area and put a little bit of money on it so that it reaches more people. But I would try more organic ways first, because any money that you spend on marketing like that is going to eat into your profits. So if you're paying a lot for the venue already and then the materials, you don't want to go spending a fortune on paid ads, but a cheeky £5 or £10 here and there isn't going to do any harm, so it's worth a try if you are struggling to get sales. The main thing is you want to get your event out there and you want to keep talking about it so that the buzz doesn't die down. If you live somewhere that's a bit more of a tourist hotspot, you might find this a lot easier than someone who lives in a really quiet town with not a lot going on. When people are on holiday, they're looking for something really fun and different to do to remember the trip, and I'm quite lucky that I do live in an area where there's a lot of holiday makers and people do come over this way for a night away or a whole weekend away, or even sometimes a week or two away. So yeah, it does help if you live somewhere that's quite a busy touristy area, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. I find it is easier to market your workshops if you do already do the teaching platforms. I think if I didn't have Patreon and YouTube, I probably would have struggled a little bit more, because people can already see what my teaching style is like and they might enjoy it and want to come to an in-person workshop and actually have the advice and one-to-one help on the day. But it isn't essential, and some of you might just want to do workshops and not worry too much about getting into the online teaching space. So get creative with your promotion, have fun with it, create exciting and engaging reels, and like me, if you've done a practice drawing or painting or whatever it is beforehand, share the process of that and get people excited about what they could potentially recreate themselves. So once you've sold some tickets and you've got enough people for your workshop, it's time to start prepping. Now, I believe that a successful workshop is all down to the quality of the prep. Fail to prepare and prepare to fail. We've all heard that saying. You don't want to be caught out with missing materials on the day or forgetting where you're up to and losing your train of thought. It can happen, but the more that you prep, the less likely that is to happen. I personally use a very detailed spreadsheet now with a full checklist of everything that I need to take to my workshops. It's pretty much exactly the same every time. I've really got it down to a T now. So make sure you've got a really clear list of what you need. Check it, double check it, triple check it, and you should be fine. Mine includes everything like paper, coloured pencils, my laptop, my HDMI cable, a speaker for music, envelopes to take the work home in. There's so many things to think about, but just having that there means that it's all out of my head and I don't have to think about it too much. I can just put everything in the box and check it off. I personally also like to pre-prepare workbooks with a full materials list, reference photo, a bit of a technique guide that attendees can refer back to if they're struggling with any of the words that I'm saying. And I also include a line drawing, and I used to include full step-by-step instructions, but I don't do that anymore because, like I said, I do a pre-recorded tutorial video. So what I do now is actually a bit more high-tech. I've got a QR code on the front of the workbook, and they can scan that with the phone or iPad, and it takes them to a dedicated web page that I make for each workshop. It's got all of the information on there as well, and there's a video library at the bottom. So they can then access the exact same videos that I'm putting on the screen to play and instruct everyone on the steps that we're doing. So again, people don't need to worry about keeping up with me and being at the exact same point as me, because they've got the videos that they can play themselves at their own pace. If they get lost, they can just see what I'm doing on the screen in front of them. And it just means that people can really chill out and not worry so much. And if they want to then go home and finish the tutorial at home, they can do. They've got full detailed instructions, and if they want to redo it all again, they can. Sometimes people say they're going to redo it at home now that they've learnt from the mistakes they've made on the day. It definitely helps to have some clear instructions that they can refer back to, whether that's written or digital. It's totally up to you. I used to do a live drawing demonstration on the day where I set up a big tripod, I had a webcam, and I did a drawing in front of everyone as I explained it, but I don't do that anymore because, first of all, it's a lot of extra things to remember. I had to take my big tripod off my desk every time I did a workshop, and it was just really faffy. Secondly, I prefer to have a little bit more time to go around and help people, have a look at the drawings, and if I'm doing a demonstration, it really takes me away from that. So I prefer to pre-record, have it playing on the screen, talk through it on the day, but then also go around and help people. And it also really took it out of me when I do the drawings on the day, because not only am I talking all day, which is quite exhausting anyway, but I'm drawing and really thinking about what I'm doing. I also never finished it myself, so if I could provide a video where there's a full finished drawing from start to finish, I just think it's more helpful. So now I just have to be mega organised and pre-film everything ahead of time, but as someone who makes online tutorials, I find it quite straightforward, so it's not too bad. You might not even need a demonstration at all to do your workshop. You might prefer to just read the instructions out. I went to a paint and sip class in Preston. It was a 2-hour long class and we were painting a zebra, and the artist that was running the workshop did a painting demonstration at the front like this in front of everyone, and I really struggled to follow along with that. It was really hard to keep up, but I feel like the fun in that class was the struggling to keep up. I went with my friend Becca, who's also an artist on here. We had a bottle of wine, we were getting a little bit tipsy, and the chaoticness of trying to keep up with the artist but also being a little bit tipsy at the same time, it just made it really funny. And if that's the vibe you're going for, then that is absolutely fine. But I think for what I do, because it's so in-depth and educational, teaching people exactly how to draw in coloured pencils in a realistic style, you really do need the full concentration and detailed steps, so it wouldn't really work for me doing that. But if you're doing something that's a bit more simple, maybe it's just like geometric shapes, it might be absolutely fine just doing a very simple demonstration or not doing one at all. It's totally down to you. I am very detail oriented, so I would just struggle to not have a full step-by-step guide. I do find that a lot of people really take the time at my workshops, and some people go full steam ahead and they go beyond the instructions that I've made and they've already drawn an ear when we've only drawn an eye. Everyone works differently, everyone's paid to be there, so they can really make it their own. Having those videos just allows people to work at their own pace and get what they want out of the day. So I do make a point of it at the start of the workshop that I want you to all enjoy yourself. Don't feel pressured to rush and finish. If you don't finish, you can buy the pencils at the end for cost price and you can complete the drawing in the comfort of your own home. So I think saying that always puts everyone at ease. If they're complete beginners and they've never drawn before, they feel a little bit less pressure to do something amazing in the time that we've got. And I do find a lot of people actually buy the colours at the end, so it's definitely worth having that option if you're also doing coloured pencils or pastel pencils or something where you're using individual colours. So if you do want to do that, make sure you have a means of taking payment. I've got a SumUp card machine that I take with me, and I usually have a little bit of cash and change in a tin that I also take as well. I should also mention here that for your first workshop, you should try and choose a subject that requires fewer colours to begin with, especially if you're doing coloured pencils like me and you're going out and buying loads and loads of individual pencils. Say you've got a room of 12 people and your subject requires 10 colours per person. That is £240 that you're forking out on coloured pencils. And it's a lot of money, especially when you're just doing your first workshop. So I would suggest trying a more limited colour palette of, say, 5 or 6 colours to begin with, or even less than that. So for a room full of 12 people, if you had 5 colours, that would be £120 that you'd be spending on your first set of coloured pencils. And you could take that even further. You could just do a 1 pencil workshop to begin with, or 2 pencils, something monochrome that you don't need a lot of colours. But that would be a great idea if you're unsure about whether you like doing workshops and you want to test them out before splurging on some expensive materials. So it's definitely something to think about anyway, and I'll be honest, if you are doing coloured pencil workshops or something along those lines, you probably won't really make any profit for the first workshop or even the first few workshops, because it's all about building up your materials and you're probably going to break even for the first few that you do. Hopefully you won't make a loss. If you're using acrylic paint, this isn't something you need to worry about as much, because you can just buy a few bottles of paint and provide everyone with a little blob of each colour, and they can then mix the colours together to create whatever colour they want. So it's not really as big of a deal if you are using paint, but you would only really need to worry about the canvases, the paint palettes, the easels and paintbrushes. So yeah, it's probably a much lower cost way of doing things, but I am not an artist that does painting, so I wouldn't be able to run a paint workshop. So I just have to bite the bullet and spend a lot of money on coloured pencils. But my collection has built up a little bit now. I don't think you can see it. Over the years, I have gradually added more and more supplies each time I've done a workshop. It's really warm in here. It's like the hottest day of the year so far. The great thing is, once you have started to build up a bit of a collection of colours, you can start making more of a profit from it. I did a workshop where I reused a subject and I didn't have to buy any new colours for it, and it was amazing. So yeah, you've just got to be smart with how you do it, and the last thing you want to do is make a loss. Really think about the materials that you're going to have to provide. I also like to make sure that everyone's got their own set of coloured pencils. I don't want to be really tight and make everyone share. I do share out other things like pencil sharpeners. Everyone gets their own eraser. So yeah, pencil sharpeners and additional tools like craft knives, things like that, I share. But on the whole, everyone gets their own individual supplies. So you also want to make plans if there's anyone extra that you need to come along and give you a helping hand. I am also very lucky that my mum gladly comes along with me. She loves coming and joining me for my workshops, so she really does help out. She makes all of the coffees and teas, And she also is really good at getting everyone chatting because she's so friendly and it makes the day more enjoyable. It means that I can then focus on the drawing element of the workshop. Don't need to worry about getting drinks. She handles all of that for me, which is so good. It's also good when I nip to the toilet, she can keep an eye on my valuables because I do take my MacBook with me and it's very expensive and has a lot of private information on there. So it's good to have someone there just to watch over that. I trust everyone that comes to my workshops. I am not worried that anyone would steal anything, but it's very risky leaving something like that in a room full of people with no staff or anyone else around. You just never know. You can never be too safe. You've got to protect yourself. So if you're in a cafe or somewhere where there's staff, this isn't really much of an issue. But if you're in a private room where it's just you and your workshop attendees, it's something to consider for when you need to get up and go to the loo and stuff. It's also great to have an extra pair of helping hands when you do something like forget something. I did that recently. I forgot the adapter that plugs into my laptop that I can then plug the HDMI cable in to connect it to the projector, and I was panicking, but thankfully my mum hadn't set off yet, so she was able to get it me and bring it before the workshop started. And if she wasn't there to help, I would have had no videos to show on the projector. So yeah, that's where it goes back to double checking everything. But also, if you can have someone there to help you who doesn't mind coming for a few hours just to help you out, then that's great. But I appreciate that not everyone has. So once everything is well prepped and the day finally comes, in theory, the workshop should run really smoothly. Like I said, the majority of the work is done beforehand. Once everything's set up, you've got there a bit before the workshop starts, you're ready for people to start arriving. You can begin to relax a little bit more. I find I get really nervous in the week leading up to it, and then the day arrives, I get there, everything's set up, and I'm absolutely fine because I know everything's there and my mind can be at rest then. People start to arrive, you realise everyone's really nice and chatty and friendly, and it's absolutely fine. Remember that most people know a lot less than you do about the medium you're working on. You might feel like you're a bit of an imposter. You don't know everything there is to know about the medium that you're working on, but the likelihood is you'll know a lot more than the people coming to your workshop. They've come to your workshop because they want to learn more. Maybe they've just started out and they need a bit of direction, or they just want some tips and techniques to help them along the way. So if you feel like you've got a bit of imposter syndrome, remind yourself that you know what you're talking about. That's why you're doing this. You have been doing this for long enough that you can share what you've learned with other people, and they're going to be more than happy to learn little nuggets of information from you. You'll probably have a mixed group of people with varying levels of experience and skill. Some of the attendees at my workshop have never ever picked up a pencil and drawn before. Some haven't drawn in 20 years. Some draw all the time, but they've only drawn in graphite and not coloured pencils. Some do all sorts of different kinds of art and are very well practiced. It's a total mixed bag of people, and you just need to be there to help them with whatever they need. The one thing to remember most of all is that everyone's just there to enjoy themselves. They're there for a nice day out or evening out, whatever time of day it is. They're there to have fun, and if they can learn something at the same time, then that's great. So make it as comfortable and pleasant and welcoming for them as possible. Start conversations, ask questions, see what everyone's doing afterwards, see what everyone did earlier that day. Make them feel really special and important, because that's what this is all about. It's about the attendees that are coming. It's not about you. It's about making sure that they have a lovely time. I like to have some relaxing music on in the background to get everyone into a really chilled headspace. It sets the scene, and that is why I bring my speaker along with me. There isn't a speaker at the venue, and I really like having a bit of background noise. It just makes everyone feel really at peace. And I do get a lot of people saying like how relaxed and chilled they feel after a very stressful week. So it makes me really happy that this is like a really nice space that they can come to and relax. Also think about taking some photos and videos on the day as well. It's always good to get content. Sometimes I forget and I get really annoyed at myself, but this is where it's also really good to have a spare pair of hands, because another person could take some pictures of you helping people and action shots of you teaching in front of everyone. I do always make sure to ask everyone if they're happy to have photos and videos taken. Sometimes people prefer not to, which is absolutely fair enough. I have actually got a professional photographer coming into a workshop that I'm doing soon. Somebody that I know offered to come along and help me out with some content, so that's amazing because I do struggle to get content on the day, but it's something that you should try and remember to do because you can then use the photos and videos from that workshop to promote future workshops. I like to get individual photos of everyone's work, and if they're up for it, I like to get a group photo at the end as well of everyone holding the work up. So you're never going to know absolutely everything when you do your first workshop, and that is why you've just got to get stuck in and go for it, because the best way to learn is to do. There were so many things that I learned after the first workshop that I did that I then improved in the second one, and so on and so on. And I've made things a lot more efficient over time. It now takes me half the time to prep a workshop that it used to, but that only comes with practice and experience. So don't be really hard on yourself the first one you do. It's always very daunting doing something new and you're not going to know everything. The main thing to remember is that every artist's workshops are going to be different, and that is the joy of it. You don't want to be the exact same as somebody else. You want to inject a bit of your own personality and your brand as an artist into them. There's no one way of doing things, and as long as you're very well prepared, everything's going to be absolutely fine. And eventually, once you've built up your collection of supplies, this could actually be an extra income stream for you and a way of getting yourself out there and out of the four walls of your studio. So have fun with it, be brave, step out of your comfort zone, because the best things happen when you do, and you never know what might happen. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if I've missed anything or if you have any questions, and also let me know if you've got any questions or topic ideas for the next edition of Notes from the Studio. It would be amazing if you could give this video a like, because it lets me know that you enjoyed this video and it really helps my channel out. Subscribe to see more videos like this, and I will see you again in the next one. So have a wonderful day and bye for now.